Center for Knowledge Sovereignty. I also extend a warm welcome to our distinguished Speaker of the Day, veteran Lieutenant General D S Hooda sir.
To get back the freedom and true spirit. Viewers, what a prophetic thought that is relevant.
Carry out some kind of operations against Pakistan to say that, look, what you are doing in Jammu and Kashmir is not acceptable to us.
Namaste and good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to the day's program by Center for Knowledge Sovereignty. I also extend a warm welcome to our distinguished Speaker of the Day, veteran Lieutenant General D S Hooda sir. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. It is our pleasure to have you with us for the second time today on our concluding talk. Before I introduce the speaker, I will briefly introduce our think tank, CKS. CKS is a non-partisan nationalistic think tank established more than a decade back with focus on the spheres of information technology, geospatial technology, public policy, research, national security, along with the geopolitics. CKS has been a pioneer in spreading awareness about data sovereignty and cybersecurity at strategic, political, and national levels. Please do visit our website www.ckс.org to know more and for regular updates. I am also requesting everyone to follow us on our LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as well to stay updated. Over the past few years, CKS is privileged to host on its platform several discussions, roundtables in person, and since COVID-19, we have initiated virtual discussions as well. Thus Spake Generals is one such program which has completed 4 seasons with very large viewership. Today, we are happy to have our final talk of the 5th season of our highly acclaimed flagship webinar, Thus Spake Generals. In the last 4 seasons, we have had thought leaders on our platform such as Lieutenant General PR Shankar, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain, Vice Admiral Sekhar Sinha, Air Marshal SS Soman, Air Vice Marshal Arjun Subramaniam, Air Marshal Anil Khosla, Lieutenant General D S Hooda sir, who is here with us today as well, Lieutenant General Zamir Uddin Shah, Vice Admiral Anil Chopra, Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, Rear Admiral Sudarshan Shrikhande, Air Marshal D Choudhary, Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, Lieutenant General Shokin, Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, Lieutenant General Vinod Khandare, and Lieutenant General Satish Dua. In this season also, we had a very impressive lineup of acclaimed speakers. Please note that the views expressed by our speakers on this platform are their individual views and CKS is merely a platform hosting these talks. I request all the members of the audience to put their questions in the chat box addressing it to Air Vice Marshal Pranay Sinha sir at the end of the talk so that the speaker is not disturbed during his talk. We are currently live on the Facebook page of CKS and this talk will be available on the CKS YouTube channel shortly along with all the other social media handles. Ladies and gentlemen, today in the concluding 5th talk of this season, we are honored and privileged to have a very highly acclaimed and distinguished veteran, Lieutenant General Dipender Singh Hooda sir, former Army Commander of the Northern Command. He was commissioned into the Army on 15 December 1976. During his Army career spanning 40 years, he has served in the most challenging border areas of the country and in the United Nations missions. In his last appointment as the Army Commander of Northern Command, he was responsible for looking after the sensitive border areas with Pakistan and China in Jammu and Kashmir, including the Siachen Glacier. It was he who meticulously planned and ensured successful execution of the famous Uri surgical strike into Pakistan in September 2016. In recognition for his exemplary military service, the General Officer has been awarded the Vishisht Seva Medal twice, the Ati Vishisht Seva Medal, the Uttam Yudh Seva Medal, and the Param Vishisht Seva Medal. He is the co-founder of the Council for Strategic and Defense Research, a think tank based in Delhi, and a senior fellow at the Delhi Policy Group. Now I request Air Vice Marshal AVM Pranay Sinha sir VSM, retired, moderator of the session, to take the program further. Viewers, AVM Sinha, in his last 35 years of distinguished career, has held many important appointments, and post-retirement he has worked as an advisor to Bharat Electronics Limited for a period of 3 years and is now appointed as the strategic advisor of prestigious IIT Mandi. He is also a very active member of a think tank and is instrumental in planning and executing this talk series. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Very good evening, viewers, and thanks, madam. Viewers, as some of you know well that Sumitra Goenka ji is Director, Rating Infotech, CEO Triangle Global, and our strongest pillar of strength, main Sutradhar of CKS India, and a strong votary of women empowerment on TV channels. And viewers, welcome to this concluding talk, our 5th season of flagship webinar, Thus Spake Generals. But before I invite the scholar, soldier, general, let me contextualize the subject of the evening in a minute. Our regular viewers are aware that this tagline, Thus Spake Generals, is based on German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche's famous book of 1882, Thus Spake Zarathustra, wherein he propounded the philosophy that an individual in his lifetime needs to undergo 3 metamorphoses, because a common people generally behave as a motley cow that follows herd mentality. Therefore, one has to acquire attributes, first of a camel, then the lion, and finally that of a child, to discover true freedom in lifetime. And one very interesting observation he makes, that one faces a dragon in a lifetime, which is a great barrier in the path of true spirit. And he proposes an antidote, that evolving lion has to fight the dragon to get back the freedom and true spirit. Viewers, what a prophetic thought that is relevant even today, comparable with today's geopolitical scene around India. So the million-dollar question arises, do we, on our way in becoming Atmanirbhar land, have the might to take on the red dragon that is provocatively sitting across the Himalayas? And more so, when a slimy fox-type neighbor on the western front that is always ready to disrupt our peaceful economic rise and attempts to divert our forces' attention by infiltrating like thieves and cowardly killing some innocent people in the hinterland. No doubt, to deal such collusive bad intended neighbors, diplomacy has a crucial role to play. After all, as opposed to war, diplomacy is a cost-effective means of reconciling interests and resolving complex territorial disputes. However, still we need to develop both the national doctrine and the military capability to deal any two-front war contingency as and when it arises. Because the possibility for collusion between India's 2 military adversaries is real. More so, fighting a two-front war is not exclusively India's choice. It would be thrusted on us. Hence, it is conceptually solipsistic to think that New Delhi, through the sheer weight of its diplomacy, would exclusively be capable of preventing a two-front war from occurring. Indian diplomats and leaders can at most thwart with war with both Pakistan and China, if the latter wanted. But if the two-front war is imposed on us, then what are the possibilities and what would be the contour and the nature of such scenario? Ladies and gentlemen, who else can answer this pertinent question than the former Northern Army Commander, General Hooda himself? Sir, over to you.
So thank you very much, Air Marshal Sinha, for inviting me, and thanks, Sumitra, for a very generous introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here once again and to be able to talk to you all. As Air Marshal Sinha has brought out, what I'm going to talk about today is the possibility and contours of a two-front war. Obviously, I will not be going into the details of how operations exactly will sort of pan out. but talk in broad, sort of general terms to give you an idea of one, what is the possibility, and in case this possibility happens, then what would be the contours of such a two-front war, and finally, then I will come to what is it that we need to do, what are the kind of capabilities that we need to build within the military to cater for such a contingency. So what is simply a two-front war? Simply it is, when you're facing two adversaries in a war. And I think one classic example is Germany in Second World War, where Germany was facing two adversaries on its northern and southern borders, Russia on the northern borders and France on the southern borders. And the strategy that was adopted by Germany at that time was that to avoid fighting a two-front war, let us either defeat one adversary to start with, or have a treaty so that we are not fighting two adversaries at a time. So they initially had a treaty with Russia to say that we will not engage in operations against each other, and therefore they attacked France. And after France was captured and capitulated, that was the time when they then struck against Russia. Unfortunately, this two-front war actually took a big toll on them. And at the end of Second World War, we know what happened was that Germany was finally defeated, fighting on both the fronts. I think one country that has successfully fought not only two fronts but multiple fronts has been Israel, and that's because they built up their military capability, their training standards, etc., to be able to handle hostile neighbors along all their neighbors. Coming to India, what is the possibility? What is the reality of a two-front war? And sometimes, it is said, it used to be said definitely before 2020, that look, sometimes, it's the military that is raising this whole bogey of a two-front war. Actually, a two-front war is unlikely to happen. And the military is raising this bogey only because they want more resources. They want more assets, they want a larger budget, and actually the two-front war is unlikely to happen. But if you look at it realistically, I mean, we are facing two fronts already today. Pakistan, with whom we fought wars in 1947, 65, 71, the Kargil War. There is an ongoing border dispute in Jammu and Kashmir. The number of ceasefire violations that used to happen in the past, enormous, fighting across the border. So we know that there is already a hostile neighbor on the west, which is Pakistan. With China too, we fought a war in 1962. We have a border problem along our entire 3,000 kilometer long line of actual control. And while in the past it was felt that we have this series of agreements starting from 1993 with China. Yes, there have been incursions take place regularly, but the border has been peaceful. The last time fighting took place on the line of actual control and we lost some soldiers was actually 1975. After that, the border had remained completely peaceful, and so the feeling was that the border is likely to remain peaceful. We have our business interests are there, trade is booming, leaders are meeting each other. But I think after 2020, all that has changed today. China has emerged as sort of a real military threat. We have had relocation of forces that has taken place from the Western front towards the Chinese front, major relocation of forces. Even today, we talk about 60 to 100,000 soldiers in Ladakh facing off each other across the line of actual control. There is tension. All the agreements that we had have broken down. And if you look, I mean, as far as Pakistan is concerned, the situation still remains the same. Pakistan still looks at India as an existential threat. They keep talking about Jammu and Kashmir as an unresolved sort of agenda. And so we already have these two hostile neighbors. How a war will pan out, will the situation escalate into an all-out war is not something that we can sort of predict with any degree of certainty. But the fact is, it would be unprofessional on our parts to say that a two-front threat does not exist. The fact is, it exists today. Can the situation escalate with the level of tensions that are there on both the western and the northern border? We have to be prepared for a possibility of an escalation. We may not want it to happen, but as I said, it would really be unprofessional on the part of the Indian military to say that it cannot happen, and therefore we should not prepare for it. And not only a two-front war, people are also talking of a 2.5 front, because even as these two borders, both the western border, the line of control, and the line of actual control remain active, we have an ongoing sort of insurgency, an ongoing counter-terrorist operation that is happening in Jammu and Kashmir, which requires, Indian military to put assets on ground. So we have regular soldiers, we have the Rashtra Rifles, which is employed in counter-terrorist operations. And so we actually talk about, even while these two fronts are active, we also have half a front that is there in Jammu and Kashmir. And therefore, the possibility is always there. How would it play out? And here, I'm a little cautious. I'm reminded of the word of, the US Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, in 2011. He told West Point cadets that when it comes to predicting the nature and location of our next military engagement, since Vietnam, our record has been perfect. We have never once gotten it right. We had no idea a year before any of our missions that we would be so engaged. So predicting how wars could take place, where would it take place is actually difficult. But the way the military looks at the scenarios that could play out in a two front is something that I will talk to you about. Let's first look at a war with Pakistan. What are the possibilities and what are the scenarios under which a war with Pakistan could take place? And it is felt that the greatest likelihood of a conflict breaking out between India and Pakistan would be the result of a major terror strike that takes place in India. That in case Pakistan continues with support to terrorist activities, major attacks, major incidents continue to take place, and really they test the Indian patience, then India could feel that this is unacceptable, and therefore there is a need to utilize our military resources for an operation into Pakistan. We have done it on a limited scale, as you know, in the past. The latest incident being the Balakot strike of 2019, which to some extent did escalate, although it didn't go into an all-out war. But those are the kind of situations which could then lead India and Pakistan into a conflict. If that happens, what could China do? In all likelihood, in a situation like this, international opinion is going to be on the Indian side. Because, as I said, it would probably be a result of India's patience being tested because of terrorist activities in India. And therefore, it is our feeling, and maybe it doesn't always play out in that way, that China is then unlikely to initiate a major conflict, it would be sensitive, to its own reputation as to why is it coming on the side of a state that is promoting terrorism, and therefore you could see some level of restraint from China. Having said that, it doesn't mean that China will not come to some kind of indirect support as far as Pakistan is concerned. So you could see directly, aid in terms of arms and equipment that China does. You could see for sure some movements along the LAC. Some incursions could take place. Basically, the idea would be to tie down Indian forces along the LAC so that reserves from the northern borders cannot be taken out completely and put against the Western Front against Pakistan. So the attempt on the Chinese side, while not engaging in a sort of full-scale conflict, could well be to try and put some pressure on the northern front against India, so that some forces are engaged on the northern front and cannot be pulled out against China. That's the sort of likelihood. You could also see increasing presence of the PLA Navy in the Indian Ocean. And again, the idea would be, keep some naval assets sort of tied down to looking after the PLA Navy assets so that the superiority of the Indian Navy cannot fully be employed against Pakistan Navy. That's the sort of scenario we visualize in the event of India-China war, with China taking these kind of actions, which will require some response from our side. I mean, obviously, you cannot completely vacate the line of actual control along the northern borders and say we are pulling out all our troops against the Pakistan front. Conversely, if there is a war with China, in all likelihood, it is going to be a war that is initiated by China. It is unlikely that India is going to initiate a conflict or war with China. And again, what is going to be the level of the conflict will depend on what are the likely Chinese objectives. So if it's something like, look, we need to teach a lesson to India, we need to keep them in their place, we need to keep them checked, we need to show that China is the more superior power in Asia, you could see a limited conflict. If China has more expansive geopolitical objectives, you could then see a war that breaks out all along the LAC. In such a contingency, what is Pakistan likely to do? In such a contingency, it is, again, our assessment, I would say it's a personal assessment, that Pakistan could take advantage of India's involvement in a war with China to try and take advantage by launching some kind of operation in Jammu and Kashmir, try and capture some territory. It says that Jammu and Kashmir is disputed territory. It doesn't accept Indian hegemony or not hegemony, but the fact that JNK is a part of the Indian state. And so you could see Pakistan carrying out some kind of actions, military actions, along the line of actual control, along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir, which will mean that apart from being engaged in a war with China, we would also be engaged in almost a full-scale conflict with Pakistan. And I say full-scale conflict because if we remain completely defensive on the Pakistan front, it could encourage Pakistan to take more and more action. And therefore, we will also have to carry out some kind of operations against Pakistan to say that, look, what you're doing in Jammu and Kashmir is not acceptable to us. And those operations may well be in Punjab, Rajasthan, etc., and not necessarily confined to Jammu and Kashmir. So when you look at these two scenarios of a two-front war, the scenario in which India is likely to find itself under pressure is a scenario when it's facing China as the primary threat, at the same time being engaged with Pakistan in conflict along the western border. That really is, I would say, for us would be in the military would be the most sort of challenging situation that we could have. So that's broadly, the kind of scenarios that could sort of play out in terms of what the two front scenarios could look like. One, a war with Pakistan, where you might find sort of limited actions along the LAC by China, mostly in order to tie down some troops on the northern front, so that we cannot deploy our full assets against Pakistan. And a full-scale war. The second scenario is a full-scale war with China, in which we would also be seriously engaged on the Pakistan front in the event that Pakistan attempts to carry out some actions, particularly in Jammu and Kashmir. AVM Sinha talked about diplomacy and what we would expect as far as the military is concerned out of our diplomacy, obviously, would be to ensure that one of our adversaries is kept under check through diplomatic action, that in case we are engaged in conflict on one side, that our diplomacy helps in keeping the second neighbor under check. That is, if you are engaged with China, then our diplomacy makes sure that Pakistan doesn't enter the fray. And similarly, if you are engaged against Pakistan, our diplomacy ensures that China does not do anything along the LAC. Unfortunately, and I say this with responsibility, currently our diplomatic relations with countries are not in a very good shape. So as far as Pakistan is concerned, we know there is absolutely zero diplomatic engagement. We don't even have high commissioners. There is no conversation, dialogue that is happening at the diplomatic level between the two countries. The kind of messages that are coming from Pakistan leadership don't give you any confidence that they are willing to sort of bend their ways and engage with India. And similarly with China, unfortunately, since 2020, our relations have not been on the best of terms. So, and we are all seeing that what's happening. Xi Jinping refusal to visit India for the G20 summit, and this whole issue of staple visas, border maps that are being put out. So engagement, although we are at some level talking to each other, but even if you see the record of those conversations, I mean, unfortunately, there isn't a common understanding of what the situation and what the problem is. And so, as I said, diplomacy, at least currently, has its limit in attempting to prevent, as I said, a two-front war. And the second thing that we need to be sort of sensitive about is that India has openly declared itself for strategic autonomy and saying that we will not be a part of any alliances. And while that is good, because it's a position that India has taken not only now but also in the past, when we used to call it non-alignment. But what that means is that you really don't have any military allies, and therefore, when it comes to situations where you could get into conflict with China and Pakistan or both, you are going to be completely dependent and relying on yourself. And so again, that's something that the military has to be conscious about, that our capabilities that we build up have to be in such a way that really nobody is coming to your assistance. You have to do this. You have to do this all on your own. So assuming that we are engaged in a two-front war, what will it look like? And again, I'm going to talk to you in very broad terms, and not talk specific about what the Army, Air Force, or Navy will do, or what formation will do what, where the war will take place. I think very broadly, and this is the military thinking, that if we are to be engaged in a two-front war, what we will need to do is designate a primary and a secondary front. The attempt to be strong everywhere could actually mean that you are strong nowhere. And so depending on whom you consider as the primary threat, so if the war is initiated by Pakistan, in all likelihood, Pakistan is going to be the primary front. In a war that is initiated by China, that China will be the primary front. So you need to designate, look, this is our primary front and this is our secondary front. On the primary front, you need to gather as much forces as you can. As I said, it's going to be a two-front situation, so you just cannot denude your secondary theater or your secondary front. But in an overall perspective, when you look at force levels of the Army, Navy, Air Force, you will say that these many forces and the majority of your forces will be designated to your primary front. And the attempt will be to win on the primary front, and at the minimum, achieve a stalemate on the secondary front. Make sure that even on your secondary front, the adversary is unable to achieve a significant sort of victory. So hold your secondary front while putting maximum resources on the primary front. And you might well ask, look, if China is the primary front, can we, in the event of an all-out war, actually achieve some kind of victory on the primary front? And I would say, while if you look on the paper, and you will look at numbers, you might feel that China has enormous superiority. They have many more aircraft, much larger navy, missile systems, the army is larger. And you might feel that, look, isn't there an imbalance in force level? But I would suggest to you that terrain has a great impact on the kind of war that is going to be fought along the line of actual control. So the war that is going to be fought is going to be fought along the Himalayan watershed. And the Himalayan watershed is a major obstacle. Yes, there have been infrastructure development. Yes, roads have got built. But the high altitude, the terrain, the weather imposes has an enormous impact on how operations can be conducted and how many forces you can actually employ. And similarly, Tibet, from where major operations will be launched, is a high altitude plateau. There are issues of acclimatization. There are issues of aircraft taking off from there with their full loads, that altitudes they can't. So the terrain imposes enormous kind of restriction on, as I said, both the force level, the buildup of logistics, and on human endurance. So let's not look only at paper strength and say, look, China appears sort of much stronger than what India is. And then if you look away from the continental front to the maritime theater, the Indian Navy today still has a very dominant position in the Indian Ocean. So while the PLA Navy on paper may be the largest navy in the world, in fact it is in terms of number of battleships. The PLA Navy today is the largest navy in the world. It has it's more than the US Navy. But for the PLA Navy to come and operate in the Indian Ocean is still a challenge. And so the Indian Navy has a dominant position today in the Indian Ocean. And so I just wanted to bring these points out. So just for those of you who would be wondering whether in a two-front situation, can the Indian military hold its own along the line of action control? I would say yes. There are areas in which capabilities are to be built up, and I will come to that. Fighting the PLA is not going to be easy, and so capabilities need to be built up. But the differential, frankly, is not so much that it should concern us that the PLA will be just like a walkover as far as the LAC is concerned. So that's the scenario. As I said, the Navy will play a key role in a two-front scenario because it's still dominant in the Indian Ocean and can look after both the Pakistan and any threats that happen in the Eastern Indian Ocean. So the Indian Navy is going to play a key role as far as the two-front conflict is concerned. And so it's right when people say that we need to look at building up our Navy. As I said, is it going to be easy? Not really, because it's going to be possibly the biggest challenge that India can face, particularly if the primary front is China. It's a strong military. It's reorganized itself well since 2015. Technologically, it has built itself up. As I said, the Navy is growing strong, and therefore we will need to also look at how to match capabilities, how to create doctrines that help us successfully fight a two-front war. As we look ahead into the future, it looks apparent that with the size of the Chinese economy, with the size of the defense budget, which is 3 to 4 times the size of the Indian budget, and the resources that are going into building the PLA, if we do not keep step, if we do not enhance our own capability, over the next 5 to 10 years, we could find ourselves in a very, very tricky position. And therefore, we need to start looking at how to develop capabilities, particularly keeping in mind that the Chinese military threat today is more real than it was. As I said earlier, the thinking was, look, we are not going to get into a military conflict with China. I think after 2020, that notion has completely been disabused. So today we need to start looking at Chinese front in a big way, and also be conscious that in case we have a conflict with China, there is a likelihood that the second front, which is the front with Pakistan, could also get activated. So let me come to the last part of my talk, which is on building our capabilities. And I think a simplistic sort of solution would be to say, look, let's increase our defense budget. We need 60 squadrons of the Air Force, and this is the figure that has been given by some strategic experts to say that in case you have to fight a full-fledged two-front war, you need 60 squadrons of the aircraft of the Air Force. You need 250 ship navy. You need a completely modernized Indian Army. The reality is we are not going to get these kind of figures. You are not going to get the kind of budget that would help you build this. In fact, if you look at the defense budget as a percentage of the GDP, the defense budget has actually been reducing. In 2020, our defense budget was 2.1% of the GDP, which as a percentage of the GDP was the lowest since 1960. After 2020, the budgets have increased, but I don't think we are going to see a very significant increase in the defense budget, considering that India is still a country, where millions are in poverty, where social development infrastructure, civilian infrastructure needs to be built up. And therefore, there are limits to how much the government can give towards the defense budget. So what do we do? And I think so, therefore, you need to look at how is it that we can more efficiently utilize the resources that we have. And here I'm not only referring to military resources, which I will come to later. I'm referring to national resources. Look, the fact is, wars are not a military effort. Wars are a national effort. And therefore, you need to start looking in a holistic manner at how the nation is going to sort of support and behave during operation. And here I come to something that immediately sort of will strike you, which is how are we going to utilize our what we call civilian armed police forces during war? And these are CRPF, BSF, ITBP, etc. These constitute our CAPFs, as we call them. What are the numbers? They're more than 1 million strong, almost the size of the entire Indian Army. We need to integrate them into our operational planning. Today, unfortunately, this is something that has not happened, that is not happening. For example, if you look at the Indo-Tibet Border Police, it's deployed along the LAC on the border with China, along with the Indian Army. Unfortunately, both forces are under different ministries. So the ITBP is under Ministry of Home Affairs. The Army is under the Ministry of Defense. There is also no clarity on how the ITBP will come under control of the Army during operation. There is no real clarity on how many CRPF units will actually come to support the military, not fighting along the borders, but in what we call rear area security. Securing your rear areas where you have your logistic dam, securing your routes of communication where your military convoys, etc. will go. So I think the first thing that we need to look at is take all our uniformed resources, and I'm not talking about the police, which is under state, but the central police forces, and see how we can co-opt them better in case of conflicts and in case of wars that happen. And I've given you the example of the ITBP and how we need to sort of integrate at least both these forces into our operational planning. Within the military too, we need to look at a more efficient management of resources. So this is a task that has been given to the Chief of Defense Staff. Look at integrating logistics, look at integrating resources, look at integrating training methods. I mean, why is it, for example, for helicopter training, the same type of helicopters, the Air Force has a separate training school, the Army has a separate training school. If you look at air defense weapon system, the Air Force has their own air defense training school, the Army has an air defense training school. Some issues like that. Why can't we have common logistics? These are things I think we need to look at and significantly see how we can jointly in an integrated way combine certain aspects that can bring us, more efficient utilization of the funds that are at our resources. As I said, let's not think that we will suddenly get enormous amounts of defense budget. That's, as I said, is not going to happen. That's one area where I think the military also needs to look at utilizing its resources properly. And then, of course, fighting a holistic battle will mean integration of operational planning, integration of joint doctrine. How will resources be utilized in actual war fighting? And so we have been talking about creation of the integrated theater commands. It's now been, almost 3 years when the proposal was more than 3 years, in fact, when the proposal was first mooted. And we still seem to be, debating, discussing. And I know this is an important issue, and we should not rush into it. But at the same time, we need to reach some kind of consensus between the three services and at the political level on what we visualize as the future structure of the Indian military. And so integrate the theater command is something that now needs to come in, I would think, sooner rather than later. And we should not delay this whole process too much. I know services have their own sort of reservations, but if you look at the overall advantages of integration, I think it's quite obvious that we cannot continue with our present planning system of planning in silos. And finally, I will say we need much more integration of technology into the Indian military. We are going about inducting new technologies, but it's my personal view that it's happening, more in an incremental manner, rather than a massive infusion of technology that is required. Technology can to some extent help out, enhance, increase your capability. I mean, we are seeing the Ukraine war, the advantages of technology. How drones are being used to attack targets as far as Moscow by Ukraine. The use of long range missiles. So technology is something also that we need to look at. Artificial intelligence, robotics, autonomous systems, greater employment of drones and UAVs, something that the military should be using. And I just want to add my last point here, that when we are looking at technology, it's not merely the possession of technology that is important. It's important that we have our strategies and doctrines in place of how we are going to use that technology. We can say, oh, artificial intelligence is important. How are we going to use it? So do we have a strategy in place? And finally, do we have the organizational structures in place to be able to use those strategies? So these are some of my thoughts on how I think a two-front situation could play out. What are the possibilities? What are the scenarios? And what sort of India needs to do to build up its capabilities to be able to successfully prosecute a two-front war in the future. So I'll end here, and if there are any questions, I will take them. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for this enlightening discourse, and it is as expected. A lot of questions we have been bombarded. You did in the initial subtle messages you did assured us that in case we go for two-front war, which may be imposed on us, there is a case of Israel that we can tilt the thing in our favor. And of course, you have said that for that military capability and the training standards needs to be high. So, and you also touched very categorically that China's objective would be very, very limited because maybe they will initiate only if they want to teach India a lesson or China is superior. That message they have to come until unless they go for the expansionist agenda, which is very likely to be there. Sir, you have given the contour also. You said that this initiation of war, in case it happens from the China side, you said that it may happen in the Himalayan watershed, that is the fault line, or maybe from the Tibet, the high altitude plateau, both has got terrain imposition and restrictions. Also, maritime arena is one, which is very likelihood. And you also assured that we have our Indian Navy is in a shape where it can take the PLA. And you did set about capability build up, how you touched upon how integration is required. And very, very rightly, sir, the civil armed forces should be integrated, which still not very clear. Theater command integration, other capability build up. Sir, one issue which, because of positive time, you have not touched, though you gave a hint that our main philosophy is strategic autonomy, and we don't go for any military alliances. But the question which has been raised, and from our regular viewer, Sri Dharamveer ji, that we are the member of Quad, and also we have emerged as a champion of South-South alliances, or whatever you say. And in case we go for, in case some certain eventuality happens, will this Quad alliances or South-South countries, Brazil or Venezuela, or Brazil or South Africa, or even the Middle East, can leverage their power for intervention? Sir, your comment on this.
Okay, so let me just talk about, let me put this, Global South and our relations with the Middle East countries and BRICS, etc. Look, these are not military alliances, and I think we should not expect that any of these would come to our military aid in case of a conflict with China. As far as Quad is concerned, again, it's been a stated Indian position that the Quad is not a military alliance. It is a meeting of like-minded countries who want to see an open and free Indo-Pacific. Yes, in some ways, it is a grouping that seeks to curtail Chinese behavior. That look, we do not accept Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific, and so we seek to curtail its behavior. I know there are naval exercises, joint exercises that take place, but again, to expect that the Australian Navy or the Japanese Navy is going to start a shooting war with China in case India and China are engaged. They could support you with things like intelligence gathering. The US will certainly give you intelligence about what is happening. They could help you with logistics. They could help you with some arms supply. But look, let us not expect that these are people who are going to come to your direct military aid. Are we going to see US boots on the ground in Ladakh? The answer is no. So at the end of the day, yes, we can depend on them for a few things, but the battle has to be fought by us. And I think we should therefore build capabilities accordingly.
The battle has to be fought by us only, sir. And they all will be the fair weather friends. Sir, you did commented on the future technologies that we should leverage robotics, artificial intelligence, cyber, electronic warfare. And until we integrate all these things in our capability build-up, we cannot take on the China. The question of by one of the regular viewers, Vijay Raji is again, are we capable technologically to take on two-front war? One line, your comment, sir. We have to build up, yeah.
Look. Are we even suggesting that in case a two-front war happens, the Indian military is going to collapse and it's not going to fight? No, let's not get away with that kind of impression. Over a period of time, we have built up our capabilities, both on the northern front and on the western front, to be able to prosecute war. We are training for it. These are situations that are war game. The Indian military, I was seeing the global sort of firepower index that has just come out in 2023. India is considered the fourth strongest military in the world. So let's not assume it's something that is going to collapse. We need technology. Unfortunately, and I say this, technology adoption in the military has not been as quick and fast as we want it to be. And therefore, it's time that, even now we are looking at it in a big way. We are now incorporating more and more civil technology, the civil industry, the academia, etc., into ensuring that we get the latest technology. This is something that we need to look at very, 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 very seriously. It's happening today. I just hope it gains space. We are able to do much more civil military integration into this. Today, the talk is, earlier it used to be military technology that used to lead the way, and then the technology had spin-offs in the civil sector. Today, unfortunately, just the reverse. It's civil technology that is being adopted increasingly into the military. And therefore, we need to look at it like that and not say that, defense technology is something that is completely separate and that we need to develop it ourselves. Look at driverless cars, autonomous cars, for example, is something that is developed out in the civil sector much before it is adopted into the military. Artificial intelligence, quantum warfare, these are things that we need spin-offs from the civil industry. And I'm glad that it is happening, that there's more and more engagement, that is taking place.
True, sir. Technology we are inducting, but very rightly and aptly said, sir, technology is not going to make you win the war, may assist you, and the last bullet has to be fired by the people only, by the troops, and that is where we will we can match. That is very assuring thought, sir. We will not going to collapse very soon. And one question which has come, sir, again on economic front, Madam Sumitra ji asking, both Pakistan is economically destroyed, China's economic power is on decline. So will they venture for two-front war?
Look, as I said, as far as Pakistan is concerned, I don't think they're looking at any war with India, and that's why the situation that I brought out was, in all likelihood, if there's going to be conflict with Pakistan, it is going to be initiated by India. In fact, Pakistan would like that they continue with whatever they're doing, terrorist activities in Kashmir, without engaging in a war with India. So I don't see Pakistan initiating a full-scale conflict with India. Although, as they say, gray zone warfare, subconventional warfare is something that they will continue as long as it remains below the threshold of war. As far as China is concerned, and I think they could well do it. I mean, what happened in 2020 was the use of military force in an attempt to coerce India. I mean, they brought in 50,000-60,000 soldiers in Ladakh, carried out sort of intrusions across multiple areas. Of course, it did not go into a conflict, but definitely the use of military force as coercion, as an attempt to pressurize India, is something that we've already seen in 2020. So I think it is something that they could attempt in the future. will they, with their economy in the state it is, yes, the Chinese economy is under pressure, but let's also understand. I mean, the economy is huge, much larger than India, and even if it grows slowly, we don't see India catching up with China in the next 20 years. And similarly, the resources that they allocate to their military is much larger and will continue to be much larger than India. And so I don't see that as putting major restrictions on China on the use of military force. I think they will still continue to do that.
Yes, sir. There's a question, of course, this is what is the significant tech gap between India and China that you have already answered, sir, and what is the update on integrating new CDS? So, sir has already touched upon how we require, and the theater command integration is in the offing, and it should happen as early as possible. We can't give any update. Sir, one question, and they are asking that since you have been there as a Northern Army commander, how do you see after abrogation of 370 thing in situation in J&K, has it improved? So that was the last.
Yeah, so if you look, if you look at purely security parameters, you can certainly say that the situation has improved. Violent incidents have gone down. Number of terrorists have gone down. The fatality deaths that took place in counter-terrorist operations have gone down from 2019 to now 2022-23. Local recruitment has reduced. You are seeing a development taking place, and you are seeing this year, I think 1.8 crore tourists is what they're talking about have visited. So stone pelting is not there, street protests are not there. So as far as the security situation is concerned, there is a definite improvement, and we can say that. Is everything normal? And I think that's something that requires a more sort of deliberate analysis, because if everything was normal, you would have held elections. I mean, it's been 5 years since we've not been able to hold elections in Jammu and Kashmir. So I would say the security situation has significantly improved. But let us not also say everything in Jammu and Kashmir is now completely normal. So that normalization will take place when elections take place, and when the people of Kashmir fully accept that they are an integral part of India, when radicalization reduces. So there is some distance to go, but the security situation 100% has improved significantly.
So last but not the least, though you have given the caution that it's always hazardous to predict about war, the question is, which country is more unpredictable, Pak or China? So one-liner, sir.
Look, I think if you look at unpredictability, I would say China today, because of the kind of aggressive behavior that we are seeing from that country. Pakistan is more predictable. This is what they're going to do. They will kind of do some little bit of infiltration. They will make noise about Jammu and Kashmir. They'll make noise about the nuclear, weapons, etc., etc. So China is really unpredictable. And as we go and look into the future, how not only the India-China competition, but how the US-China competition will play out, and how it will have its impact on regional countries in the US is something that we need to really assess and analyze. So definitely China in my view.
True, sir. True. We understand Pakistani very well, and China remains in under the OPEC shield, sir. Thanks, sir. Thanks for this illuminating talk. Over to you, madam.
Yes, so I did receive a few more questions, General Sir, but I think we are not sharing that as of now. Maybe we can send you a note and we can reply back to the audiences.
Sure, I'll do that.
Yes.
I'll do that.
Thank you. So first of all, I thank Lieutenant General Hooda sir for joining us today. It was a very interesting discussion and I'm sure the audiences were kept glued. We hope to see you, sir, back on this platform soon once again. I wish to thank AVM Pranay Sinha for moderating this session beautifully. Also, I express my gratitude to him on behalf of everyone in CKS for meticulously planning the 5 seasons so far of the Spake Generals. And today we conclude the fifth part of this particular season. So we had the privilege of listening to Lieutenant General Hooda today. It's a great honor. Last but not the least, I wish to thank all our viewers who have joined us on this platform and also who are watching us on the other channels. Please do follow us on social media for upcoming programs. Jai Hind and thank you.